We're interviewing Alexander Pastoors, special representative of the Dutch Association of People Living with HIV. My first question for you, Mr. Pastoors, what topics that you heard about today and what topics of the EECAAC conference can be then transmitted into the AIDS 2018?
I think the most important topics of EECAAC 2018 are, of course, the relevance of the situation here in Russia and Eastern Europe regarding to the number of new infections and what needs to be done to get the numbers of new infections down, and to especially look at the key populations. So we look at the people who inject drugs, the sex workers, the migrants, and of course men who have sex with men. And to learn what is being done here in this region and to see how we can learn from each other and to see how our knowledge of the key populations and reducing the numbers of infections, how that can be of help for your region.
Well, I think mostly I'm particularly interested in the roles of NGOs and in the role of youth too. So I was pretty happy when I saw in the program the youth session organized by the Secretariat and UNAIDS that we're going to talk about prevention experiences for youth around the world. So I think that one of the key topics to bring to the AIDS 2018, especially because we are talking about building bridges and breaking barriers, and I think one of the biggest barriers we see right now is this generational barrier. So we always see there's the old school generation of people that work with HIV, but now there's like youth getting more involved, more and more, which is really good, but we have to connect them somehow. So in these conferences, I think it's really important to make room for them. And also regarding the NGOs, I think that's the way that different regions can mostly cooperate. Sometimes governors can have some transfer, but it's a bit harder. So I think from the NGOs and for the activists or like youth-led organizations, that's the best way to go to bring this experience to the AIDS 2018 and show it to the whole world.
I think what we heard during a couple of plenaries and sessions is that access to treatment is a very important topic for this region. When you look at the 1990 cascade that is developed by UNAIDS, and that is about testing, how many people are treated and how many people have a zero viral load, I think there is still a big need for improvement in this region. And I think that is a topic that we definitely also will discuss during the International AIDS Conference in Amsterdam. And I think we can continue the discussions that we have here in Amsterdam to see what kind of interventions are done in other parts of the world with quite some success, and how we can adapt them for the situation here in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. And I think another important topic is funding. Is to make sure that the activities that are implemented for prevention, for treatment and care around HIV and also the co-infections HIV and TB, how we make sure that they are sustainable, that we continue supporting people living with HIV, that we continue supporting them in adherence to their treatment, and that needs money. And some countries were very lucky in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, so to say, to get funding from international donors and from the Global Fund. But what you see now is that they are withdrawing, and it is more and more the responsibility of local governments to make sure that these activities are paid and are financed. And that is not so easy. But again, I hope that the discussions we have now, how can we create sustainable financial mechanisms, that we can continue that discussion also in Amsterdam.
What ways of cooperation between the regions do you see possible?
I think a very good way to cooperate is on the level of NGOs. I think there are many NGOs who have special knowledge of the situation here in Russia, who have access to the key populations. And there are a number of good NGOs in the Netherlands who are also active here in Russia, for instance, like AFEW, for instance, but also NGOs like mine, for instance, like people living with HIV, so that we can learn of how we organized ourselves in order to be a good speaking partner for the state, for instance, to represent the interests of people living with HIV and to make sure that everything that is being taken to get the numbers of infections down is done in a way that it is respectful to people living with HIV and it is not stigmatizing people living with HIV.
The focus of the AIDS 2018 is also the EECAAC region. So we had great interest in like for the Amsterdam Youth Force, which is this global movement to give voice to youth. We're looking much closer to the region too. But then one of the things that we noticed is that there's a big resistance to organizing, to youth organizing here. And when we found partners, it was a bit harder to communicate, once because of the language, and also because it's very, well, there's a lot of like all these barriers because of, you know, like stigma, but also because sometimes it's illegal. So we have to be very careful when we are addressing these issues and trying to talk to these youth. So I think definitely one of the greatest way to cooperate and more looking into youth, it's exactly this. It's how we can, well, from the perspective of like Western world and Amsterdam, where the conference is gonna be at, it's a very open environment where like there's a lot of these youth-led organizations and also NGOs, and then they work very closely with the government. The government is very interested in providing this platform for youth too. So one of the ways that we can try to cooperate is somehow giving, well, transferring this knowledge to youth here, that we can learn from them, and we can also hear from them what exactly are, because we can only, well, we can more guess or just have, you know, some hunches from outside, but we are really interested in looking what exactly these barriers are, so we can help them out when we're there having the conference, but also the youth pre-conference that the Amsterdam Youth Force is hosting. So this is the moment where we're gonna interact and hear to build up for, you know, more conferences to come and more like encounters and possibly partnerships.
Yeah, we as AFEW International are working already for quite a long time in Eastern Europe and Central Asia, for more than 16 years. And we have built up very good relationships with local NGOs and networks. And that is also what we see now, that it is well, very good to collaborate with these local NGOs, with the local civil society. And we will definitely make use of these relationships to make sure that we get that focus on Eastern Europe and Central Asia at the International AIDS Conference. So the link between the civil society here in this region and with the Western NGOs, I think is already there, and it is important to strengthen that, and we will definitely do so. So that is one aspect of that collaboration. And another thing that I think is very important, and AFEW really likes to facilitate that is building a bridge between Eastern experts working in the field of HIV and TB, like clinicians, researchers, to link them with Western experts so that there is a kind of twinning and that they can exchange knowledge and experience. I think that there's also a lot to learn by Western experts from what is happening here in the region, and I think the other way around. And I would love to see that now with this closer collaboration here during EECAAC and with the Dutch society, we have quite a big Dutch delegation here at the conference, that we have put a kind of basis to make sure that we can build on and have that bridge between Eastern experts, researchers and Western ones.
What's your impression of the conference so far? Where do we have to grow and what's done proper? What's your opinion on that?
It's very good to see that the number of people that attend the conference is growing. And I think it's also important that there is a conference in the region for Russian-speaking people. I think it's good to have that and to have a broad spectrum of general knowledge of what is going on in the region. I think what could be better is that there should be more science, and I'm particularly interested in scientific research from the region, what is being done here and how it is presented in the conference to the other people, so that we can see what kind of studies are going on and what you've learned from it. And for instance, the pilot projects on harm reduction, how that is performed and how it is done and what is being done with it on a political and leadership level.
I think it's very well organized. So far everything is very well put, and we didn't have any trouble with any issue. What I think, and I'm always taking it back to youth, is just because we were actually discussing this earlier, that there's barely youth here. We're gonna have the youth session, but as in attendees, we see a lot of, old school generation, and also like probably police officers or researchers and, attendees from the region, but they're not exactly under 30, or they might not look like under 30, but that's what we have observed so far. And as much as there's the special session on youth, it would be nice to try to involve more in terms of attendees, so they can really, we can really make this bridge, have this connection. Otherwise, we will have a space, a platform for youth, they're talking to old school people, but what is the other youth that they have to reach to, to get involved in these issues and to get the message spread out to. So I think for next conferences, also that's for the actual international conference too. As Amsterdam Youth Force, what we're trying is to make more room so we can have more space to reach this youth, but also bring them to, come here and listen to us and kind of get involved with these issues that are very important.
I think the conference is very well attended. I think it's my third or fourth EECAAC conference that I'm visiting, and I see that there is much more interest of all kinds of people, disciplines to present the results of their work, but also to listen and to network. And I think that is very, very exciting. And I'm always very surprised that I think everybody is aware of that there are still so many things to do. There are many challenges, there are many concerns, many obstacles in the work that we have to do, but they are raised. And I think it is also very important that people are not shy or not ashamed to address those obstacles and challenges. And I really hope that also this EECAAC makes sure that we take a next step, because it is you just can't say, okay, we have these obstacles and these concerns and then stop. No, you really have to take it up and then start doing things to overcome these obstacles. So I hope that in 2 years' time, at the next EECAAC, we can see some results that had a little seed here at this conference.